Hello everyone, this is part 1 of What If Naruto Helped Hinata. This story is made by Candy JC3, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Wake up Naruto, Sakura said as she punched his head with the force of a stampede. Sakura, why did you hit me? It's been 4 days and we haven't even seen anything that proves you were right. It was probably just a dream, we all miss him, but seriously, if he wanted to come back he would have a long time ago. Naruto got up while rubbing his head to ease the pain. You're probably right, but it has been a long time since we last saw him. 5 years after he killed his brother. I wonder what he is doing. Sakura's hair blew in the wind as the sun set on that crazy day. Let's go home, Sakura, Naruto told her with a goofy smile across his face. As soon as they got back to the village they heard news of AK in the Hyuga clan. Hanabi had been killed and Naruto, Hinata and Kiba was sent to rescue her. Shino was on a mission with his father. Sakura asked to go along, but soon had other plans for here to help in the hospital because the other medical ninjas were sent out on missions. They had 1 day to prepare. Hinata was really nervous because she had heard Shino and Kiba talking about how much Kiba liked her and that he would really like to take her on a date. She didn't want to hurt his feelings because he was a great guy, but she really wanted to tell Naruto how she feels, so she sat and thought. But her thoughts became cloudy and then she drifted off to sleep. Hinata, wake up. Ah! She screamed and looked up. There stood Naruto, right over her bed. Her face turned red and she rubbed her eyes to make sure she wasn't asleep. Hinata, we have to go rescue your sister. Naruto grabbed her and pulled her out of bed. She looked down and saw her hand in Naruto's and smiled. Then she passed out from the realization that this wasn't a dream. When she came to, she was moving and heard 2 different voices. You could have waited till she woke up to go, you know. But I really want to start the mission. It was Kiba and Naruto fighting over. Wait, Naruto is carrying me, I'll pretend I'm still knocked out. She smiled and closed her eyes. The next thing she felt was cold and wet. Wake up Hinata, nap time is over, you're slowing us down, Kiba told her. Sorry Kiba, I'll try to be better. Hinata looked at the ground the whole time she spoke to him. Hinata, it's okay, look, I'm sorry, I guess. Oh, never mind. Kiba rubbed the back of his head as he spoke, then he got down to face level and smiled at her. Akamaru licked her nose. She looked at him and knew what he was doing, but she was confused. She needed to talk to Naruto. Kiba, where is Naruto? She had concern in her voice. Annoyed by this, he replied. He was worried you might be hungry, so he went to get some dinner. Luckily me and Akamaru caught some fish earlier. He said, holding up the fish in a proud manner. She giggled and helped build a fire. 2 hours later, dripping wet and dragging his feet up to the campsite, Naruto rejoined the group. Food, he yelled as he smelled the fish cooking and ran up to the fire and grabbed the biggest fish. He started to take a bite when he realized Hinata had woken up. He felt bad and offered her the biggest fish instead. You probably need it more than me, Hinata, you've been out all day. She blushed and turned it down. I'm not that hungry, Naruto, you can have it. She blushed and watched him bite down on it. His smile mesmerized her. She loved every dimple he had. Hinata, aren't you hungry? Stop staring at me and eat, he said. She is so odd, yet a mystery I want to solve. Like why she always turns red when I try to talk to her. He looked at her in a puzzling way and she blushed and quickly turned in the other direction. Kiba was now intrigued by this look he'd never seen before. If Naruto did find out, did he stand a chance with her? Jealousy raged inside him and he threw his stick down. Akamaru picked at the fish bones while he walked to the river to cool off. Hinata, may I ask you a question? Naruto said as he walked over to the log where she sat on the other side of the fire. Sure Naruto, what is it? She blushed as he sat beside her and took her stick to throw on the fire. The flames danced in the night sky. Hinata watched them float into the sky and disappear. Tell me the truth, why do you always turn red when I'm around? Do I stink? Naruto sniffed himself and almost passed out. And no, she looked into the fire and heard it crackle. Are you okay? I mean, do I make you sick? Naruto rubbed his head, worried that she might say yes. No, it's just. Just what? Kiba was headed back up to the campsite behind the woods when he heard the words he never wanted for her to say. The only chance he had would soon be gone. "I'll love you," she said and fled so he wouldn't have time to answer. She was glad to get it off her but Kiba. Hinata ran right into Kiba. Neither one of them was paying much attention anyway. Hinata. Wait, she heard Naruto screaming. Kiba grabbed her and she struggled to get free, but he liked her too much to let what happened to him happen to her, and if he hurt her, he would be there as a shoulder to cry on. Hinata, wait, I get it now. I get why you act the way you do around me. I would act that way if I truly liked someone. He lowered his face and smiled. Kiba held her closer and she snuggled close to him. But she was confused. She was now trapped between two people she couldn't live without, one of her best friends and the love of her life. Hinata, I'm not sure if I like you as much, but I'm willing to try to make it work. I've never had a girlfriend and Sakura is way too Sasuke obsessed to care about me. And you might be a little weird, but you're cute. So what do you think? Hinata looked up at Kiba and he knew his chance was over. Naruto, you'd better not hurt her. She was shocked. She knew how much he cared for her and felt bad about being the only three on the mission, but he looked down at her and smiled. He then loosened his grip on her and Naruto held out his hand still with the goofy smile on his face. She was reluctant at first, still blushing and holding her hand near her mouth. But then she slowly lowered her hand into his and he walked her back to camp. Kiba watched them head back to camp and thought that he would rather be anywhere else but here. He regretted letting her go, but he knew he couldn't control her. He just hoped Naruto would treat her like a queen. He chuckled, half out of self-pity and half out of happiness. Back at camp, Naruto spent the rest of the night trying to get Hinata to open up to him. It was sometimes hard to understand her, but he never stopped smiling. Hinata, I didn't know your life was so rough, he told her. Oh, no, Naruto, you've had a rougher life, but you've never let anything stop you from fulfilling your dreams. You always are proving people wrong and showing people that there is hope. I see it every time I look at you. Naruto was shocked. He loved how Hinata made him feel when he was down. She should be an inspirational speaker, he thought to himself. Hinata, you're so amazing. You know something, even though you've had a hard life, you always look after others, and make sure that they are safe. But I want to look after you and make sure you're safe. I never want you to be hurt again. He pushed her hair behind her ear and she grabbed his hand. One mere touch sent chills down his spine. They gazed into each other's eyes and he pushed his forehead against hers. Hinata closed her eyes and smiled. She had never been so happy in her whole life. We should probably get some sleep, she heard Naruto say. Then she felt something soft against her cheek. Naruto had her. She could handle the rest of the things that had happened, but this was too much. She fainted. When she woke up, she was in Naruto's arms and smelled food. She smiled and slid her hand across his face. He smiled and pushed her up into a hug and then carried her out of the tent to the fire. Kiba was watching the fire and thinking about how jealous he was of Naruto. Just then he saw Naruto carry Hinata out of the tent and just rolled his eyes. Then he grabbed some fish for Akamaru and himself. Just don't let your relationship get in the way of rescuing your sister, Hinata, Kiba warned her. She and Naruto nodded and then helped pack up the campsite. After breakfast they were back off to find Hanabi. The only lead they had was that she was caught by ninja who wanted the secret of the Byakugan, and that time was of the essence. Kiba and Akamaru used their awesome sense of smell to follow Hanabi's scent to a small house outside the snow village. Hinata scanned the area and found traps set up almost everywhere, except through an area where two ninja were having a meal. We can take them, Naruto said. But guys, I've seen this chakra somewhere before. I don't know it. We can handle it. Hinata sounded concerned. She had an extreme look of terror on her face and held her hand against her sea. Naruto, she whispered. It's Tobi and Sasuke. Naruto was shocked. He thought that Tobi had been killed during the last Akatsuki battle between Pain, Konan, Tobi, Kakashi, himself and Sai. He himself was the one who dealt the final blow on Tobi. Who is Tobi? Kiba asked them, but neither responded. Naruto was now eager to ask questions, but was even more pissed that Sasuke was the K of his girlfriend's sister. His rage built up and he started glowing red. Chakra hadn't flowed through him like this in a while. Naruto. Hinata screamed and grabbed him. She feared something awful was about to unfold if she couldn't somehow stop him. Naruto suddenly snapped back into reality and looked down to see a frightened Hinata around his waist crying. He bent down to return the favor. Hinata, I didn't mean to frighten you. Now more concerned that she was afraid of who he was, he wondered how, if she could handle it. He wiped away a tear and held her in his arms. I guess I shouldn't get carried away now that I have to protect someone, he smiled at her. She looked up shocked, she still couldn't believe he had asked her for a chance. Naruto then looked over in the direction of Sasuke and Tobi in a serious demeanor. What were they doing together? It's been 5 years, and now I will find out what is up. Sasuke. Naruto yelled into the air as birds started to fly away into the bright blue sky. Wait, Naruto, I see something. What the? Hinata then became very angry. Kiba and Naruto looked at each other confused. What was wrong with her? Hinata, what is it? Kiba asked, hoping for an actual answer this time. Hanabi is. You see Hanabi. But before Kiba could finish she fled. Naruto followed her. Akamaru then chased Naruto and Kiba was left alone, again. GR, he said and went after them. What Naruto then saw was, unexpected to say the least, Hanabi and Sasuke were holding hands. What are you doing? Hinata yelled at her sister, you who has everything pulls something like this. GR. Hinata then tackled her sister and they started to cat fight. Why do you even care who I date? You should be happy to be rid of me, Hanabi asked as she pulled Hinata's hair. Hey now girls, let's try to get along, Tobi said while he placed a log on the fire. Naruto then growled at Sasuke. So this is what you have been doing, no wonder you couldn't go back to the village, you didn't want anyone to know you two were dating, but for how long? Naruto grabbed Sasuke's shirt as he spoke. What I do no long concerns you, you should be grateful those who chased you for years, you're free, and I no longer care about that place, all I wish to do is rebuild my clan. And since the Sharingan came from the Byakugan I figured she was a good choice. Sasuke explained and released Naruto's grip on him. Hanabi, you still have to come home, that was our mission and there is no way I'm failing another one for a while. Naruto grabbed Hanabi and zoomed off toward the direction of Konoha. Don't worry Sasuke, I got this one. Tobi got up slowly and walked slowly over to a tree. Then bam. Naruto ended up back in the spot he had started. Thanks, Uncle. Sasuke smiled at Tobi and then took Hanabi from Naruto in a quick fashion. Then all three of them disappeared into the forest. Hinata, can you still see them with Byakugan? Naruto asked her. She looked everywhere, but they were no longer within range. I can't believe I let them get away like that. Naruto his hand into a nearby tree. I think we should probably report this to Tsunade, this might be more complicated than we thought. They all looked at each other and knew this couldn't go over too well with her. Hinata and Naruto set up camp that night while Kiba got a rabbit for dinner. While Hinata built a fire, Naruto jumped her from behind and started to tickle her. They both ended up on the ground, Naruto was on top of her and they both couldn't stop laughing. He rolled over onto the ground and lay beside her. She placed her head on his shoulder and they both stared up at the stars. Kiba came back up to the site only to see them, his day had from great to freaking fantastic. I'm glad you two can flirt while Hanabi is with Sasuke, doing who knows what, and Tobi, I don't know who that is but if he is Sasuke's uncle that can't be good. He continued to talk but neither paid him any attention. Naruto was so glad he was getting to know Hinata more, and Hinata was too caught up in the perfect moment to know there was another world outside the space where her and Naruto were lying. Well, if you two ever get hungry the food is done. Naruto jumped to his feet when he heard that, but then he realized that he had left Hinata in the dirt. Before he grabbed his meal he went back and helped her up. Sorry Hinata, he rubbed his head and helped brush her off, but in the process he accidentally hit her. His whole face turned red and he looked directly at the ground. But that didn't stop him from seeing her because when he did, she passed out. Hinata, I'm sorry. Naruto didn't know what to do. He didn't want to make her feel uncomfortable. He carried her back to the tent and laid her down gently so she wouldn't wake up. Seeing her asleep made him feel like he would never see anything as beautiful ever again, and he feared he might lose this if she knew the whole truth about him. He decided not to eat, he snuggled close to her and fell asleep. Naruto woke to a startling noise. It had come from outside the tent and Hinata was gone. He was worried that she might be in trouble and frantically got up and ran outside the tent. She was nowhere in sight. He was about to send out shadow clones to find her, but then she came out from behind a tree. Hinata, you worried me, where were you? He asked as he ran over to her. Naruto, I'm fine, I'm sorry, did I wake you? She asked, blushing while kicking some dirt on the ground. Yeah, but where did you go? You never told me. He rubbed the back of his head as he spoke. IIIW was had to go to the restroom, she said, still kicking the dirt. Her face got redder. Naruto started to turn red himself. He felt bad about invading personal matters. He chucked a little out of embarrassment and headed back into the tent. When he realized Hinata wasn't following him, he turned around and saw he talking to someone. He got closer, but stayed in the shadows as not to be seen by her. He saw that it was Hanabi and she was crying. Naruto then came out to see what was wrong. Hey Hinata, what is wrong with your sister? He whispered as he came up behind her. This made her jump, but she realized that it was Naruto. Naruto, Hanabi said and dashed off in the opposite direction in a flash. Hinata, let's go after her. He grabbed her arm and started to move, but she wasn't going anywhere. What's wrong, Hinata? Move your feet, we have to accomplish this mission. He tried to move her, but she just stood there with a shocked look on her face. NN Naruto, Hanabi is, she said in a normal voice. But then she started to whisper something. What did you just say, Hinata? Naruto looked puzzled, he thought he heard what she said, but that couldn't be right. Hanabi is PP pregnant. Naruto was filled with not rage this time, but jealousy. Why did Sasuke get to have a child before he did? His jealousy raged inside him, but if continued to become more upset by this, the fox's chakra would show, and it might frighten Hinata. He looked over at her. She hadn't moved since she had told him the news. If all this was going through his head, what could possibly be going through her head? Hinata was in shock. She had mixed emotions about all that was happening. She was glad that she would be an aunt, but outraged on the things her father will say about this. She also was upset that her sister is 3 years younger than Sasuke and he hasn't been the most responsible or dependable person to anyone she has ever known. Tension built up inside her. She cried aloud, she didn't know what else to do. Her whole body went limp and she fell to the ground. Hinata. Naruto ran to her side. Are you okay? He picked her motionless body up from the ground. She was hardly even breathing. All this commotion had woken up Kiba, who ran out to see what was going on. Naruto, what's happening out here? He asked, only to see Hinata passed out in Naruto's arms. What did you do this time? Kiba snapped at Naruto and picked her up to lay her in the tent. He headed into the tent when he heard Naruto whisper something. What? Kiba turned around suddenly. What if? Naruto turned his head away from Kiba, he looked worried from what Kiba could tell. Kiba knew something was wrong with these two, but he didn't know what. Maybe it had something to do with what had just happened. But what did just happen? Maybe it was none of his business. He turned back into the tent's direction. Naruto spent all night thinking. He knew it was time to grow up. He had to take things more seriously. He had people he cared about, and people who cared about him. All night thoughts raced through his head. At any given moment he had a new thought go through his mind that made him realize that he needed to be serious in order to succeed. But these thoughts just made him nervous. What if he couldn't do it? He had to do it. He knew that he had matured throughout the years, but was still reckless in some situations. That could get people he cared about, that could get Hinata hurt or worse. He didn't want to think about it. Then he thought about this mess with Hanabi. She was supposed to be better than her sister. She was very irresponsible. Naruto was afraid people might see him like they would see her. As an irresponsible idiot who didn't care about the outcome of others. Day broke and Naruto decided that he was going to be the one to get breakfast. This time, however, he wasn't going to mess up. He made a fire and headed out to find food. Hinata woke up to find both Kiba and Naruto gone. She just guessed that Naruto was going to attempt to bring back food. But she could smell food, so Kiba must be outside cooking. She got up, got ready, and went outside to see Naruto and Kiba eating fruit. Well, it's not fish, but look Hinata, I got breakfast. Naruto grinned and threw her an apple. She shinned it with her coat sleeve while walking over to the log where Naruto sat. She bit down on it as she sat and smiled at him. Wow, Naruto is growing up, she thought, and gave him a hug. But now she had to tell Kiba what was going on. She thought she would tell him herself but would like to have Naruto around for support. Kiba, I guess I should fill you in on, but Naruto stopped her. It's okay, Hinata, I got this. He got up and motioned for Kiba to follow him. They headed into the woods, but Naruto turned around and waved at Hinata. Enjoy your breakfast, Hinata. He turned back around in the direction of Kiba and scurried to catch up to him. On the other side of the woods, however, Hanabi didn't return to her campsite and Sasuke was a little concerned. Toby, Hanabi didn't come back last night, have you seen her? She said she was going to talk Hinata. I didn't think it would be a problem, so I told her she could go. Sasuke shrugged it off though. Sasuke, he turned around. He was now content that he knew where Hanabi was. She was up in one of the trees, but something was right about her. He climbed the tree to where she was and offered her an orange he picked on the way up. Hanabi, is everything all right? He peeled the orange and split it in half. She took the half he offered her and looked toward the sky. Sasuke, I have a confession. What is it? He felt he already knew the answer to that though. I'm. She looked into his eyes with deep concern. Shush. He pressed his finger against her lips. I think I already know, but it's okay considering we are married now. So, are you nervous? Hanabi bit her lip. I think now is a good time to rebuild my clan. Now all we need is a city to settle in. She snuggled closer to Sasuke and he put his head on hers. Then she closed her eyes and was glad that she had chosen him as her husband. While Hinata sat alone awaiting the return of Kiba and Naruto, she was still worrying about the events that took place the previous night. She tried to put herself in Hanabi's shoes. But no matter what came to mind, logically, there were better ways to handle all those situations. The only one that made sense was she finally snapped from being her father's ideal daughter for so long. The only escape she saw she took. Are they married? That would certainly have father outraged, and if they weren't, that would cause father's bee to boil even more, Hinata thought while fiddling with the apple Naruto had given her. Oh, Hanabi, of all the people, why him? All Hinata wanted to do now was some sense into that girl. Disappointment didn't even begin to cover what Hinata felt toward her sister. Hinata also knew, however, that no matter what, she was too late. She could no longer stop her sister from making a foolish mistake. Her sister was pregnant. Not only that, but with Sasuke's child. She would be an aunt to a child who truly didn't belong in this world. She worried for her sister. Was Sasuke treating Hanabi as well, or even a tiny bit as Naruto treated her? This caused her to become even more concerned for her sister. Kiba came back very slowly, however. He didn't know what to say or even how to act around Hinata. Her sister was in a tight spot. He was glad that Hinata had had a rough life, if not she might be the one in Hanabi's shoes right now. He drudged slowly toward the tent, trying to avoid the sight of Hinata as he made his way through the camp. He prayed that Naruto would keep her distracted long enough for him to make it inside. She saw him but didn't want to bug him. In time, he would be able to deal with this better, and on his own. They all would. She then faced toward Naruto, the one who for so long gave her the courage to become a ninja in the first place. She was impressed how every day he tried to improve on something. But she could tell he worried about her a lot, and she didn't want him to worry about her too much. They all had enough problems without adding her to the list. So she decided to tell Naruto how she felt, and maybe, since he wants to be better, he will take it the way she means it. He didn't. He thought she meant he didn't care about what happened to her family. That she thought it was none of his concern. This had caused a fight to break out. I like you a lot, why wouldn't I care about your family? No, it's not like that, it's just I don't need you worrying about me, sometimes, I can handle things on my own. Look, I'm never not going to be concerned about you, it's what a good boyfriend does, looks after his girl. No matter what the circumstance. Yeah, but, I'm just so confused. She looked at the ground, but Naruto just ducked down to her level and smiled a kind but worried smile at her. Then he got closer and kissed her. All of a sudden all her concerns melted away. The only thing that mattered was this moment. She felt her life would be different from this point on. Thank you, Naruto, she whispered as her pushed her hair back behind her ear. Yeah, well, the best part of a fight is making up, right? She smiled at her and she placed her hand near her mouth while blushing. She didn't look well rested, however, and Naruto thought that maybe it would be a good idea to get some sleep. Yeah, you're right, I'm kinda tired anyway. Good night, Naruto, she said and gave him a good night kiss. Naruto watched her as she walked over to and then inside the tent. He never wanted to make her feel uncomfortable, but they had just had their first fight, and he already felt he had failed. But he reassured himself that all couples fight, and it's how they end that makes the couple stronger or no longer existent. Naruto poked at the fire with a stick. He thought about how well Kiba had taken the news. Yeah, right. At first Kiba didn't even believe him. Kiba said Naruto made too many stories up and this one was no exception. But after Naruto explained that he himself hadn't heard it from Hanabi but from Hinata, Kiba started to buy into the story. But after this Kiba just threw a bunch of questions at Naruto. However, Naruto didn't know any of the answers to them, so he kinda just made up answers that might please Kiba. It took him all day to get Kiba to finally agree to go back to the campsite. Naruto chuckled at the memory. But then he remembered that Kiba still liked Hinata and didn't want her to get hurt any more than he did. Hopefully he won't try to comfort her in a too friendly way. Just then Naruto realized that Kiba and Hinata were inside the tent together alone. Naruto rushed inside to see. Nothing, they were both sleeping on opposite sides of the tent. Naruto lay between the two and snuggled close to Hinata. He should trust her more than that. And if Kiba did try anything, he should have enough faith in her that she would have called him. He brushed her hair away from her face and kissed her cheek. Get a good night's sleep, cause tomorrow will be the day we tell the Hokage. When they had arrived in Konoha the next day, none of them were prepared for the reaction Hokage Tsunade would give them. Naruto was in fear the most, however. He had failed more missions than he had passed. He would probably have the harshest of all the punishments. When they arrived in Tsunade's office, she said she had already heard of Sasuke and Hanabi. But who had told her about them? Naruto thought to himself. Don't worry, I won't count this mission as failed. Since the mission was to find Hanabi and her K, you were successful. Tsunade looked like she was busy with something important. She motioned for them to leave. All exited except Naruto, who was going to find out what had happened while he was gone and who reported these findings to her. Naruto, Sasuke has returned with Hanabi. But I'm more cautious about who tagged along with them. It's another Uchiha who claims to be Sasuke's uncle. Tsunade told him without hesitation. As soon as Naruto got this information, he fled from Tsunade's office in search of those two. Why now? Did he want to raise his family in the same city he was raised in? Did he do it for her? No, he was still too selfish. He hadn't changed a bit since Naruto saw him last. When Naruto had finally caught up to Sasuke and Hanabi, she was carrying around her arm. Tobi was nowhere to be found, however. Hanabi, Naruto yelled. She stopped and turned around. Naruto, something is wrong with Sasuke, so he told me to come here. I don't know where to go though. I can't go home and Sasuke has no home. Can we go to your place? Hanabi looked so concerned about Sasuke. Naruto remembered when he actually cared about Sasuke. But he no longer did, and saw no point in helping either of them. I'm sorry, I don't. Naruto, there you, Hanabi. It was Hinata. When Naruto saw her, he realized that the love he felt for her was the same Hanabi felt for Sasuke. Okay Hanabi, you guys can stay at my place for a little while. But Hinata and I will try to find you guys a place to stay ASAP. Naruto then turned to Hinata and continued, can you help your sister take Sasuke over to my place? Hinata nodded and Naruto went in search for a place to stay. Hanabi, do you know what is wrong with him? Hinata asked her sister. She shook her head. Why not take him to the hospital then? I'm trying to avoid being seen by too many people and being reported to father. I don't know what I'd tell him if I saw him again. Once they arrived, they gently placed him on the couch and then looked around the room to see the mess Naruto had left before he left on the mission. They started cleaning up while they talked about what might be wrong with Sasuke and what was really going on between Hanabi and him. Sasuke was actually looking for you, Hinata, but remembered you like Naruto and were probably somewhere watching him train or something. But since he was already sneaking around the town, he remembered you had a sister. Like he told you guys early, he was looking for a good companion so that his clan would live on. And me, I was looking for a way out. I didn't want to be here anymore. You and Neji have people who cared about you and who you cared about. I felt left out. Then he came along. She looked over at Sasuke, who lay motionless on the couch. He promised me protection as well as a way out, and since I no longer felt like being the perfect daughter, I left. The note was to keep you guys from finding out the truth. But that worked out well. After that we got married, and, even though he doesn't love me, he looks after me, and after his unborn child, up until the time he got sick. She went over and grabbed his hand. Please, get better, if not for my sake then for the sake of your child's. Hanabi gently told her husband and lightly kissed his forehead. Hinata could tell that Hanabi had grown up a lot since she had disappeared. The worried look on Hanabi's face made Hinata pray that nothing like this would happen to Naruto. But her concern now was the well-being of her sister. I wonder if I could stay here too and watch out for Hanabi, she thought. Then she went to the kitchen and started to make some dinner for the four of them so it would be ready when Naruto returned. Hinata, I'm sorry for causing a mess. And I hope that one day you find a guy that truly loves you, instead of ending up like me. Hanabi never once took her eyes off Sasuke as she spoke. She loved him so much it hurt to know he didn't love her the same. But she thought that over time he would love her. Now, who knows how much time was left. Hanabi, let's take him to the hospital. I know you're worried, but which is worse, losing your husband or dealing with father? Hanabi knew that Hinata was right, she didn't want to do either, but Sasuke had to get better. Alright, we can take him tonight after dinner. Everyone should be inside and that way we won't be seen as easily as we would during the day. Hanabi then kissed her husband's hand and got up off the floor. She walked over to Hinata, hugged her and said, "Thanks for helping me out when I need it the most." Hanabi then helped Hinata cook dinner and set the table. Naruto came right on time. He smelled food coming from the direction of his house and dashed right in. He ran to the table and looked eager to see what was cooking. I'm sorry I couldn't find a place for you guys to stay yet, but I'm not giving up, Naruto said as he stuffed his mouth full of food. It's okay Naruto, we are taking Sasuke to the hospital tonight. Naruto stopped eating when he heard this and looked at her like she was crazy. Are you sure? 'Cause you know that Sakura is working there due to their low staff count recently. Naruto pointed out to Hanabi. Well, it's better than him Naruto. Yeah, but Sakura might kill him if she finds out the truth. Naruto, Hinata don't joke like that right now. She lightly sapped the back of his head and he looked at her shocked. She blushed and quickly apologized. No, you're right Hinata, I shouldn't joke like that, I'm sorry Hanabi. Hanabi was shocked. From what she had heard about Naruto, what he said was what he meant. But why did he listen to what Hinata had told him? Are you two dating? She asked him outright. They both looked at each other, blushed and swiftly turned the opposite direction of one another. So you two are dating? Hanabi exclaimed in a mischievous way. She knew the whole truth about Naruto. Most of town had figured that out after Itachi had come for him. But Hanabi wasn't sure if Hinata knew or not. This should be interesting, Hanabi thought to herself. After several intense hours of waiting, they decided it was time to take Sasuke to the hospital. Naruto honestly didn't want to see Sakura after she found out about all this. But he knew she would be even more upset if Sasuke had because he refused to get him medical help. Preparations made, Naruto and Hinata took one of Sasuke's arms over each shoulder, Hanabi opened the door and the four of them were off. Taking the back roads to the hospital made the journey longer, but they honestly didn't want to know what would happen if they were caught. Luckily they made it to the hospital. Tsunade knew Sasuke didn't look too well when he entered her office. And knowing Naruto wouldn't leave a comrade in such a horrible condition, she decided it was best to wait the night out. So it was no surprise to her when they arrived that late at night. Tsunade had also asked Shizune to stay and told her all that had happened. Stopping in front of the hospital, Naruto hesitated to go in. He looked over at Hinata, who didn't know why he was so reluctant to enter. Hanabi was becoming very impatient however, and she was about to go on an emotional rampage if Sasuke stood another second in the cold. So you guys did come, I had a feeling you would, I've already prepared for your arrival. They heard a voice say. They looked over and saw Tsunade walking out from behind a tree over to where they stood. She took Sasuke under her arm and said, you guys should get some rest. Go home, I'll handle it from here. She started in and remembered Hanabi had now belonged to him. When she turned around they stood there watching her. I'm not leaving my husband, with your permission, may I stay with him? Tsunade nodded and then looked at Naruto and Hinata. You two, however, are not allowed to see him until visiting hours tomorrow. Hanabi close behind her, Tsunade entered the hospital leaving Naruto and Hinata alone. They weren't in a hurry to go anywhere, both knew that neither could sleep. Naruto dropped to the ground. He was relieved that he had not run into Sakura and that Sasuke was now in Tsunade's hands. Yet he couldn't shake this awful feeling. Something wasn't right, but what? Hinata sat down beside him and placed her hand on his shoulder. Things were happening unexpectedly, and if she was to be the woman she wanted to be then she could no longer be the shy timid girl she once was. Naruto looked up into Hinata's eyes, which made him fret about Hanabi. She would be alone with a child if Sasuke were too. Naruto, don't worry. Tsunade is the best doctor. She is, after all, Hokage. Sasuke is in good hands. She then smiled at him the same way he smiled at her when she was down. Naruto found that a little amusing. He gently laid his hand on hers, took it and it. Then placed his hand in hers, it on the ground. He leaned back and looked straight into the night sky. She also lay down, but didn't stare into the sky. She closed her eyes and wished this day away. She liked these last few moments with Naruto, but they didn't make up for the rest of it. When she awoke, she was on Naruto's bed. She looked around the room and then to the floor, and saw Naruto sleeping there. He knew that he wouldn't be able to trust himself with her in the same bed alone. So decided it was best to sleep on the floor. Her jacket and sandals were the only things that he had taken off. She grabbed a pillow and then went to lie beside him. It was still dark outside, but the sun was just starting to peek out from behind a mountain. She snuggled close to him and fell asleep. He was shocked to find her beside him when he first woke though. He thought that maybe she had fallen off the bed. But when he saw her pillow he smiled and her head. He took the blanket off him and covered her with it. He wrapped one around her waist. Then she slowly opened her eyes. She turned over and started to blush when she saw him. He her good morning, smiled at her then got up and offered her his hand. She took it and he helped her up. He placed the pillows and blanket back on the bed, and after that went to the kitchen. She followed him to the next room and headed in to make breakfast. But Naruto stuck his arm out. I'll make breakfast. He then turned around with a smile on his face and she nodded. She went over and sat on the couch. As he cooked, she watched him. It was just ramen but she liked that he looked after her. He placed it on the table and then pushed out her chair. She walked over, sat down, and stared at it. It smelled delicious. Her eyes then shifted to Naruto as he walked to the other side of the table to sit down. As he did he saw her eyeing him. She blushed and he smiled. He loved that he now understood why she acted that way toward him. He never wanted to stop looking at her, she was just so gorgeous. She grabbed her chopsticks so he mimicked her movement. They both didn't know what to say but neither minded just staring at and thinking about what the other might possibly be thinking. A couple seconds went by when Naruto broke the silence. Did you sleep well last night? Yes, thank you. But you didn't have to sleep on the ground for my sake. He started to rub the back of his head. He didn't know how to respond to that. Well, I'm glad that I woke up to your sweet face, Hinata. She placed her hand against her lip, blushed, and faintly smiled. Are you going to visit Sasuke in the hospital today? She asked him in a timid voice. Yeah, I guess I'll head over there later, maybe after training today. Are you going over there, Hinata? She nodded. As soon as I can. I'm a little worried about Hanabi. She looked out the window toward the direction of the hospital. At the hospital, Hanabi sat beside her husband awaiting his test results Tsunade had taken earlier that day. Hanabi heard the door open, but it was only Hinata. How is he? She asked her sister. Hanabi just looked back at Sasuke and took his hand. Hinata took the seat beside her. A couple of moments had passed when the door slowly opened and in walked Sakura. She started to laugh and cry at the same time. Hinata and Hanabi looked at each other worried. Sakura ran over to Sasuke and hugged him. His body tensed up from the pain. She took a step back and looked over at Hinata and Hanabi. What are you two doing here? Hinata, I thought you liked Naruto, and Sasuke is too old for Hanabi. They didn't know what to say. Sakura kept babbling on and on, which made the sisters more and more uneasy. Relief finally came as Naruto entered the room. Sakura was now concerned though. This was bad, he didn't want this to happen now. Sakura was speechless for a few seconds, looking around the room at all of them, then she turned to Naruto. Did you know Sasuke was here? Sakura asked him, eyes full of water. Yes, he looked at the ground as he spoke to Sakura. Well, then why didn't you tell me? Sakura now seemed even more anxious. Naruto looked over at Hinata. He knew he had to tell Sakura the truth. Sakura could feel the tension in the room build up. What is really going on here? Why are Hanabi and Hinata here? I'll tell you why, they heard a weak voice coming from the other side of the room. Sasuke slowly inched his way to a sitting position. Sasuke, you're awake. Sakura screamed with excitement. She went to hug but he stopped her. He leaned over very slowly and Hanabi. What are you doing? She is 3 years younger than you are. I've loved you for a lot longer. Sakura hysterically cried. Yeah, well you're not my wife. Sasuke gave her that look, the one that had shattered her so many times before. This look, however, had her completely. She ran out of the room still crying. Not stopping for anything, she ran all the way to the bridge where she had thought many times before. But someone else was there. It was Lee. She didn't want him to see her, so she turned to go to a new spot. Sakura. He had noticed her. She didn't know what else to do. She ran straight to him and hugged him. She needed a safe spot and she knew he would always be there if she needed him. He was stunned at first. This was a dream come true for him. But when he looked down to see her crying, he took her over to a bench where they could talk. Sakura had told him what had happened and he was a little disappointed. All this time it had been because of Sasuke. He was glad that she had decided to tell him everything about the day's events though. Well, if you ask me, you do not deserve someone who does not see you for who you really are. Sakura, you deserve someone who truly understands you and not just some that will throw you away once they are done with you. Sakura knew Lee was right. She had longed for Sasuke for so long that she had lost sight of the things that should matter. Thank you, Lee, she stated, looking at the ground. The wind blew some leaves off a nearby tree. Lee watched one leaf fall right between Sakura and himself. Then he got up and offered to help her up. Come on, I'll walk you to the hospital. She took his hand and they both headed back to the hospital. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.